Y'all need to see Princella reviewing the show y'all had on her.
Which one?
She reviewed the show.
She did like 3 shows, bro. I can't even keep up.
Did you watch them all?
I watch bits and pieces of them.
I gotta go back and watch this show because Marcus.
It's actually pretty dramatic stuff, man. I mean, she got her followers, but it's almost as if you want to even be like, "Oh, I see the point she's making," but then
who is she? What's her deal? Why y'all talking about this?
She is Herothy.
She's what?
Like Himothy, Herothy.
I don't understand.
I was like, "What are you?"
I don't understand.
So basically she coaxes women into like misandry.
Yeah.
So she does like the female empowerment. She does the degrading of men. She does the, there is kind of like the red pill space. There's like a smidge of like, here are all the self-improvement things that are actually important. And then she will use that to proposition herself as to why women should just give up on men or only go for elite men if they absolutely want to be with a man.
Yep.
While trying to turn most women to her team.
You remember when I said feminism or radical feminism cannot make women look strong and capable without making men look stupid? She is the embodiment of that statement. So this is actually the part where I'm kind of like, damn, if you're a misandrist, follow her by all means. That's your person. But the weird part is some of the women that follow her that I saw in her chat when I watched for about 15 minutes.
Married women with families.
Yeah, yo, that shit, man.
I think that people do it for entertainment. I don't think people.
Yeah, no, they don't do it for. You got to read the chat. You have to read the chat.
That a married woman with a family siding with people.
No.
Crazy
it's not. It's not that. It's so this lady she said out of her own mouth, "I teach the occult." So when she said that shit, listen, if you don't lose something like this is why when we talk about men and women's brains being malleable, bruh, anybody I follow say some shit like that out of their mouth, unsubscribe, right? Well, I'm not on the shit you on. She said when she said that, some of the women that still follow her, like they're too dismissive of the outlandish shit she's saying, and that's why I'm
gonna do my homework. I'm gonna watch the episode that you guys did, and I'm gonna watch some of her other stuff, and I'm gonna see what's the draw.
Yeah.
Well, no, if you watch it, you might come back. So some people are susceptible due to base beliefs that maybe they shouldn't go over there and start listening to what she's talking about because they're not gonna come back to say.
You know what? Though, I'm actually.
Me to do I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Your ways over 45. It ain't no.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. I think she's doing a lot of the work for a lot of these men. So, what I'll tell men, and not only do I promote marriage, I just want men to have a suitable partner and somebody who actually doesn't hate them. A lot of black women hate black men low key
because of what's going on, Mike.
Low key. But what I'm saying is, if you're somebody who's actually trying to turn your life around, if you're like, hey, I got means now, I'm looking for a woman. I know being with a woman and having children will focus me. I want to be just like Marcus. I want to be just like Trigger Mike. These dudes know how to do it the right way. They give me the courage. I'm not about to just send you out there to get a woman that follows somebody like that willingly, because what they'll do is pretend that they can turn it around and pretend they never had that misandrist spirit to begin with when they secretly hate you, and then all of a sudden when she's divorcing you, it all comes out, right? So
Mike, how many people actually, I didn't even know who this woman was. You're talking about us out of millions upon millions of people. This woman's following is not that great, I'm sure.
Oh, it is. So here's the thing.
But what I'm saying when I say following, I don't mean the people who just turn it on to laugh and to, I mean like true a part of whatever occult she's got going on following. But go ahead, Ina, because I'm sure you watch Ina's, you're not,
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Is like she does have a huge following, and the people who do follow her everywhere and cling on to every word that she says, and like are like they're vested in her. They super chat like crazy. They spend money like they
really
her. Yeah. I will say, because you asked what her draw is, the one thing that makes her a little bit different than some of the other misandrists out there is like when men say like some women are masculine, and these women are like screaming like banshees and hyenas and like going off the rails. She does more so like the masculine that wish that more men would show up as. She's very restrained. She's very monotone. She is a pimp. She's very even keeled. She has like she's very stoic. She will use faulty logic, but there's still an application of logic in her argument. So like from a non-critical eye, she moves the way that some women wish their man would move. And like that
she's the man. She's the man
very charismatic, right? She's very charismatic.
She's a better man than most of the men.
Don't do that. Now you're gonna come at me.
Let me get to the part where this is actually funny because she's a lesbian.
Maybe she teaches class.
So Chan, she's a lesbian. This is why I find it problematic for married women to listen to her. Never in life would I let a gay man lead me the way straight women are letting a lesbian lead them. Like never in life. The dude could put a wool over all of our eyes, be saying everything he's saying, and be like, "But I like men. I'm getting up and I'm walking the fuck out." So let me explain this logically. Married women that follow this woman, I want y'all to ask yourself, or women in relationships, what do you get out of it? Because I know what the lesbians get out of it. I know what the misandrists get out of it. But objectively, you always have to ask yourself, from this teaching, what do I get out of it? So the lesbians
I'm gonna answer that question next week when I watch it.
I can tell you right now.
Hold on. The lesbians get more women to convert over to lesbianism because that's what they want.
It doesn't work that way, y'all.
Well, no. But I'm saying that's their goal. If you got to listen to her, that's her goal. That's her goal. You got to listen.
Listen,
The misandrists get to hate on men. The misandrists get to hate on men and have it echoed and everybody agree with their points in one chamber of like-minded misandrists. So they get with, but married women got to ask themselves at the end of this, do I get a better relationship with my man? No. From the shit she's telling you to do, men will actually stay clear of you and leave you for that shit. Right? Yeah. So the married women and women in relationships, you get nothing. So following her is idiotic. That's why I don't get it. But,
so all right, Trigger Mike.
I think that's a good idea. Black second, whatever. I think that's a good idea. I am gonna watch it, and we're gonna have a little discussion because I mean, all I can go by is what you guys are saying, which is not gonna give me a clear picture of what's going on. But I'm gonna tell you one thing. I don't care how great a woman tries to sweet talk me. There's nothing that's going to make me want to be with a woman.
So we got a high school in Chicago, right? And they historically have like one of the best female basketball teams in the nation. Like they consistently produce pros like Kathy Poindexter and all these other people. They have like a 60 to 70% rate of turning girls who go into there straight out, and then they come out not straight, like on the opposite side. I don't know how they doing it or what's actually happening, but they go in there one way and they come out another way. And it's consistent like that. And this the thing that Princella does that I think that the married women are getting, like how I was saying.
I will, Parker. Go ahead. Sorry. She embodies all the character traits that women would love to see in men. She also discusses them in detail so you can identify them when you see them. The information that she's utilizing to do this. What's the channel? Let me put it in right now. So I can get because I know I won't.
We'll put it in the back chat for you.
Okay.
But so the information that she's utilizing, it's not her information. That's the main point that people don't really understand. She's taking information, extrapolating what she wants to fit a narrative, and then spin it out. So you can't argue with the bulk of the stuff she's saying because it's true. It's just not her independent thought. The part that you can't argue with, which I wish I would address, but is the tangent where she uses that information into the application of what she's trying to do, which is wonky, right? So, but if you don't have nuance, discernment, and critical thinking, you will be tricked because she does a couple things like really well. One, we're already primed and prepped for her cadence and speech patterns based off of Christian pastors. Right?
Pastor. She sounds like a damn pastor when she talks.
It's something too. It's something like so. It's like I know people
she
don't
even do the shoulders. You got to watch it. And he's
she does all that.
That's attractive to women.
These niggas.
I ain't never been attracted to the pastor now.
So then
she did a utter. I was like, oh shit.
So she operates from a form of discipline that, and she has mandated boundaries, and she's very clearly expressing them, which puts up rails so the women can see that she's not the, like, all the things that men should do within a relationship that maybe not in large men are doing. She's visibly displaying all of the things from the book that make it easier for her to, if you put her up in front of most of the things that the men say on the podcast and weigh her just off of 95% of her talking points versus 95% of their talking points, she gonna win each time.
But
even though it's not her information, she will win.
What you're telling me further pushes the narrative that no matter what you're born with, you can be a great man and get women, even if you weren't born a man.
No,
listen. Yeah. You can be such a good man as in what women want that we don't even see the fact that you ain't a man. Jeez.
No. So this is where this. So everybody asked me, or in the panels, that I was like, well, what are we gonna do? How do you fight this? This is really bad. This is radical feminism. I said, y'all, if y'all don't stop, the worst part about men is that I guess we don't like to lose, and we damn sure don't like to make it look like we're losing to women. But accept whatever else comes from this, because we don't kill feminism. Feminism has sprouted up throughout history. It kills itself. Everybody dies at the end of that movie, and they kill each other. Okay, because
what really, a lot of power.
No, like give her all the power. She's doing the work. Like I said, for men who want to know where women's minds are and just how bad they are with their misandry. This is first date talk. So what do you think about Princella the Queenmaker? You watch her shit?
It's in the back.
Right?
It's in the back. He put it back.
And the worst part about it is somebody's gonna ask, well, how do you take out Princella the Queenmaker? You don't. She takes herself out. So here's the worst part about women and their people that they follow. They don't even acknowledge that she will lose and damage all of her own credibility. So Inaz made a good point. All of her followers think she don't take L's. I watched an interview she did 2 months ago with The Saint. This dude triggered the shit out of her. Everything you said, Inaz, when she's talking to competent men that can articulate their points and do all of that like type of shit, and of course be more stoic than her. She cannot do any of that stuff like a man does. So she went against him and started going out of character every other damn.
Where's the link?
Who is this?
The Saint in the center. I saw it. Yeah, he's 100% right.
He pulled her out of character about every.
I didn't catch who it was.
Marcus, put her name in the back chat right now, please.
I put the podcast. I put the
It's all there.
Yeah, so, but her followers will act like they didn't see that.
They call it the Saint. Her the Saint.
No. That's who got, like, who actually won that thing. Another thing she does. So as much as men fight me on what did they say? That tone doesn't matter. Not only does tone matter, but you can deliver the worst message in a pleasing tone, and it take 95% of the bite off of the message. She's literally trying to convince people to do things that they're probably opposed to diametrically.
I've seen her in a TikTok. The girl, I know who she is. I've only seen her in a few. Okay.
But her tone is similar to somebody that's
she's in that Charleston White video
or a pimp, right? And men, I know we want to say I should be able to speak however I want and talk to people however I want.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between doing what you want and living with the results versus getting the results that you want and living with those.
And that's the part that I was disappointed. I'm not gonna lie with that whole thing, because I was triggered by the shit she was saying, but I just turned it into a question, because y'all see the way I was talking about the leadership thing, like, like it comes out of a book. So I just asked, does all leadership come out of a book? I didn't raise my voice. I was just like, does all leadership come out of a book? Because it's all I could do, because I was the host. But I was like, that shit is garbage. In my head, I was like, that's trash.
Maybe y'all.
Wait, please, real quick. Does she have her own channel, or is it just she's on people's?
Yeah, I put it in the private chat.
Look in the back.
Channel, though, right?
Yes, that's the name of the
podcast. That's the name of her high-powered podcast. That's her channel.
The link is back there. The link is back. So this the thing. Sugar Mike, I think Bruiser would have pulled the Saint in the center if y'all let him go. I think individually, maybe y'all could have done something that was the right thing. However, one of the things on YouTube is the emotional reactions of some of the men. And that right there. So when I watched that, I was
Yeah.
thinking, okay, this is a conversation on leadership traits and all those things. This is a perfect opportunity for y'all to not only discuss this with this young lady, but actually teach her some things with the nuances that you observed throughout your
Well,
life.
and
Instead
let's
of,
think about it this way, though. We're being
let me
unfair.
just,
Yeah.
damn, you made me forget my point.
My bad.
Yeah,
My
but
bad.
she has 70,000 subscribers. It's not
Well,
like
it's gonna.
videos
She had
have
like
like
60. She
millions.
had like 68 before last week.
So there's a
So,
difference between 1.1 million subscribers and 70,000
you know
average.
what? No, hold on.
Let's
I'm
put this
sorry.
in
You're
men,
right
not
though.
numbers. I would rather have 5
The
men, 30
no
or more.
live. She'll have like 1.8 watching. There are people with 55, half a million that don't have that many people watching when they go
Yeah.
live. So
Her
those are
engagement
just
probably
What I'm
off the
saying
chart.
is that's listen. I put it in perspective. That's like half of my school, and we're talking about a whole world of people. So that's not a lot of people, y'all.
But yeah,
Oh.
let me say this to the whole thing. We always act, and this is the worst part about it. And this is something that women keep getting tricked into thinking that all men are supposed to be leaders in the same dynamic. Some men don't know how to control their emotions. It's literally the way it's always been. White men, Asian men, don't matter. It's like, so when you put a panel of men, you see how Sweeney and MLG's actions in that moment took away all of the maturity of Trigger Mike, Ali, and it's just like, oh, so what the fuck I did all night managing 8 black people, which is hard as fuck to do, you just say, or nine black people's fucking opinions. That shit's hard as fuck. All of that gets canceled out because 2 niggas lost their shit real quick. It's crazy.
So Trigger Mike, I agree with the point that you're making. However, if the panel is supposed to be a representation of the men, we can't negate the fact that so women, if they're gonna truly submit to you, they put themselves in an extremely vulnerable position, right? And you cannot be overly emotional with that type of power over somebody.
I agree.
That can be dangerous. That can be extremely dangerous.
Let me just say this. You guys, I'm thinking I'm about to step into somebody who's got like millions of
just watch it and you'll change all your statements.
I've heard her on TikToks before. There's nothing about, she's a strong speaker. I'm like, okay, I agree with what she says, but it's not like, ooh, let me just follow everything this woman said. Like what?
All right, just watch enough of
content. Younger people, maybe that's what it is. Maybe because I'm just older and I don't know. But I've never, but I'll watch the rest of her shows. I will give an opportunity just to see. But I think that you guys are, I don't know.
So another thing is when they talk about tonality shouldn't matter, I think we negate the point of leadership. Like, I wish you could have got into this stuff. So when you talk about leadership, one of the things that to ensure effective leadership is communication. It might be the primary thing after respect. It's respect, communication, right? And then it's a loop, right? So tonality, the way in which you approach certain situations, the way in which you elicit a message, and ensuring the person understood you is probably some of the most important things we could teach, man. Why are we telling them the opposite of that, bro?
What do you mean? I'm not telling anybody the opposite.
Not you specifically, but when they say tone shouldn't matter, women should just know that that's how a man speaks to them, and we champion that.
But that's my ultimate point, though. That's my ultimate point. Those that will listen, and this is my ultimate message to women, because from that brick incident, I've realized that a lot of women, it gave me greater perspective on how women see the world. Too many women want us to make the world safe for them, like we can actually do it, right? So what they're basically saying is fix all men. All men are supposed to be a standard version of something, and I realize how untrue that is. We're battling different types of upbringing, different types of attitudes, mental health issues, tolerances, all of that. So the leaders among us will have that type of resolve, that calm, measured resolve, either learned or nurtured, right? Or you're born with it, it's learned, or you nurture it through experience. So it's only some men. That's why I'm saying, when it comes to, I'm not even going to use the example I was going to use, but when it comes to some dudes, when it comes to some dudes debating her, she couldn't get me off my square because it's the way I talk. And even if it's passionate, I wouldn't be yelling at her or what do you call it? I wouldn't have done that dig at her family. every single thing she said, I had a rebuttal for, which we've talked about in the chat and all of that type of stuff without digging in on her personal life or any of that. Right. But a lot of dudes can't do that. Right. So some dudes are emotional.
But when I tell you social media is amplifying the divide between black men and black women, pages like Justin LA Boy, pages like Spiritual World, who take the most toxic messages from Twitter and all other platforms, put them in one space that are purposely perpetuating narratives that we really aren't interacting with in the real world. You go on a date, you're not having these conversations, but you go on social media and these conversations are constantly repeated, and none of it is solution focused. It's all what they do, what's not being done, and it's not productive. It's not pushing us forward. And what's happening is we are internalizing a lot of trauma that does not belong to us. So
say it again.
So we are internalizing a lot of relationship trauma that does not belong to us. So let's say for me personally, right, I've never been cheated on. But let's say I go and I follow a bunch of women who talk about the fact that, oh, I've been cheated on, all these niggas cheat, they steady cheating. I'm going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, niggas, they all cheat. That's all they do. And I'm not self-aware enough to really understand that that's not even my shit. That's not my baggage. That's somebody else's baggage. So one thing we really have to do is learn how to detach from some of these messages that we are constantly internalizing.
I'm sitting here doing work.
Can I say something real fast?
No.
It's important for me to let people know that was 3:00 in the morning when that conversation took place, and I was extremely tired.
You see how much you was interrupted? Nobody could finish their damn sentence. I was like, damn.
I will start doing the same thing tonight if it get too long. I'm like,
So, sometimes you forget that we still on live because we be talking so much. You know,
because that wasn't a regular conversation. That was the after hours. Marky Mark brought it up into the
Trigger Mike was mimping. He brought it up. That's what started.
All right. I thought we was gonna start tonight off on a good note.
I digress.
Salute to everybody. Shoot, welcome to late night. What is this? A jam session? We got some heavy hitters in the building. How y'all doing? Everybody good? Shoot, some of y'all teachers, y'all got to work tomorrow. Shout out to you. All right, so let's break it down.
It's a regular thing for me.
People, the title of today's show, or tonight's show rather, is What's the End Goal? Princella the Queenmaker discussed leadership, and a deeper discussion was needed. So obviously you saw the context in the She Critique discussion we had in the after hours portion. And yeah, we're just basically breaking down what's next. What's the end goal? Where does this actually lead the community? Is there a place for misandry in it? Is this going to lead to women getting what they want? Marcus made some very good points and spoke eloquently on what men need to do on the leadership front. So who wants to start it? This is just an open discussion. Let's chop it up, y'all.
All right. Yeah, I'll start off a little bit just to kind of give like a little bit of a premise, like for those who may not have seen, the actual show, where she was invited to Lapeef Network, and a lot of people did have a misconception about that, about her not, just popping up and trying to invade the manosphere, which I know for a fact that she did actually reach out to other shows, but in this particular case, she was invited to speak, and it was a lot for people, right? And we tried our best to have a back and forth, but some of the things that she said was absolutely egregious, right? And I feel like some people might have been a little triggered by it just because some of the things that she was saying was so radical. And everybody wanted to get their point across, but it was so much going on. Like it was nearly impossible for everybody to say what they wanted to say at that time. But some of her one-on-ones, they come out a little bit different, but there's been many cases where she'll just rage quit. Right. And I'll say what I know just about her personally. We're not friends, but I'd say maybe associates or whatever. I have spoken to her. First conversation I had with her was like an hour on the phone. and it was nothing but pleasantries, right? So outside of the topic of relationships and how she feels about men, she's a very easy person to get along with, right? She has a good sense of the business, particularly this business, right? She's business minded. She knows how to handle it. Anything, I've worked with her twice. She's very punctual, very professional, but we absolutely have fundamental differences when it comes to how men and women's relationships should go. So that brings us to kind of where we are right now. Like, where the hell is the end game? What are we supposed to do? Like, from when we listen to what she says, how does that help us, right? How can we possibly build strong communities if we can't get along with each other, right? If we can't see eye to eye, the communities that are the strongest, they have the support of strong families. It starts with strong families and then strong communities. But if we can't at least start the male to female relationship in good faith, and we can't get along with each other, it's impossible for us to build anything upon that foundation. I'll end it there.
Sweeney,
Okay.
you going?
I was just gonna say this real quick. I think we're asking the wrong question because I hear the question that Trev Smooth answered, but I heard his answer, but I heard your question. Your question is, what does the world look like if what she says comes to fruition? What does that world look like? Because that's what I want to know.
Can we be more? Can we state what you're saying? Because she says a lot of things. So in particular, what part you're speaking of?
Actually, I think Inez or Mistaken might have spoke to it in the video that before we reacted to it. I think that was you, Inez, that said something to it. So essentially what Inez was talking about, she can actually further explain that. And I just want to know, like, I want y'all opinion on, like, what does that world look like if the type of world that she wants is created?
Yeah, I think it's what she's looking for is fairly simple. I think there would be a reduced number of men that exist, a high number of women that are lesbians, and only the elite men would engage in polygamy, because those ones would be the only ones who would understand how to make a relationship work with a woman. I think that's a really dangerous narrative that she's spinning for community and for society. Because what it does is it leaves a lot of women who want to be with men in despair, right? They lose hope and decide they're either going to be single for the rest of their lives or be in a situation where, like Trigger Mike mentioned in the video, where they're with men that they resent or hate, right? And I think that as intelligent as she is, it's not productive to the types of things that some of the people on this panel push, namely family.
Well, I'm gonna go shoot. Now, I did like what you said, Inaz, because as I digested, I've only ever watched her stuff in bits and pieces and clips. But the interesting part is I am anti. I am her entire narrative. I'm like I'm the opposite of. I am family oriented. I'm pro cooperation. I'm not pro man, nor am I anti woman. I'm pro family. So innately, it forces me to go against everything she says out of her mouth. I cannot understand the end goal here. As I said in the video, I need you to rethink. If you are a married woman or a woman seeking a relationship with a man, if you want cooperation, I need you to understand that it's not even just her. It's the entire misandrous spirit that's like demolishing the airwaves, just demolishing the airwaves right now. And the worst part about it is that when you can weaponize someone's hurt, it does make you look like a bit of a cult leader. Because I go in on women all day, y'all know that. But the one thing I'll never do is say that or use your hurt in an effort to enrich myself when I'm ultimately pushing the bond you're so desperately seeking. Right? So here's probably my key points to take is this person, do they have you and your end in mind or their own? Because I know that women outside of all the misandry, outside of all the hurt and the venom they're spewing, they want a bond with a functional, productive male. That is what they want. So does she even want what some of her followers want? We know what the lesbians want. We know what the misandrists want. But even think about it like this. There is a large amount. If you have a lot of black women in your base, that means you have a lot of single moms. At least half, just by biological science, right? Or half of those single moms have sons. So if you have a son and you're able to hate on men to this capacity, what benefit do you have listening to a woman like that? You should be ashamed of yourself. I would never, ever submit myself to teaching that even psychologically puts me against my wife, my daughter, my mother, my sisters. I reject that outright. And one of the things that I have to say on this particular topic, it's not me, it's not Trigger Mike, it's not Trev, it's not Marcus White, nor Sweeney that need to take this woman out. Where are all the married women at? Y'all the one to take this woman out. And all women like her. Y'all have done what black men have done for too long, and it's behaved like an island onto yourself. You see the shit going on, and it's not really affecting you, so you just sit back and watch, right? Like, well, it ain't me, shit. A lot of us have gotten too used to doing that. So some of you ladies who are also just disappointed by the buffoonery, and I mean some heavy hitters out here, that you have all of the goals and the outcomes that you know the women in her chat want, y'all are the ones to take her out. And I yield the mic on that note.
Well, Trigger Mike, the problem with what you're saying though is, and I'm glad you said it in the recording that you focused on the chat just as much as I did during that Lapeef show. Well, I actually did the same thing because I didn't really want to watch it, but I watched pretty much almost the entirety of her B. Taylor interview. And one of the things I focused most on was the chat. And you asked a question about the women who are married and what is their end goal. And if you paid attention to the women in the chat, a lot of them were exclaiming how they can't wait to get a divorce, how they can't wait to leave their men behind. So even, and then you also have to couple on top of that the fact that we are only married at like a 30% clip right now. So even if the majority of the voices are either single women or women who are unhappy in their marriages, especially on her platform. So I don't think, and I know we always speak to having a 10th to all you need is a 10th to get things going right. I don't think that works in this case. I don't think having the small few women that are married and happy, according to them, because like I said, I read the chat, and this is obviously what we're seeing. I don't think the women that are happily married or seeking out relationships with men are going to be able to drown out that. No, like you can't drown that out. You can't keep that down. And this is why I told JR on the show, I said the only thing we can do with this is you have to treat it like we treat every other space that just like I said, I likened it to the Klan. I ain't gonna lie to you. I said you got to treat it like the Klan. They're gonna do what they do over there, but you have to be able to do what you do over here. And we can't keep trying to go over there and change that. There's no defeating that. They're gonna do what they're gonna do over there. She has her following, and they're gonna move how they want to move. And there is nothing you, me, Shan, Mistaken, Marcus, Trev, or Naz, or JR, or Chicago Rilla. There is nothing we can say that is going to change the minds not only of her, but the women that follow her. There is nothing we can do but let them live. Because you said it right. You said reality will show them faster than we can tell them. We just got to let that play out.
Yeah.
So
Facts.
real fast. So I did have an opportunity. I didn't look as deep. Like I didn't see any of these things that you guys are talking about. I did see when she was on the Lapeef show. And I did see maybe a review she did. So I'm not really big. I haven't gone deep into knowing, her thoughts and all those types of things. But from what you guys are saying, I can kind of get an understanding. And what I'm starting to think is this is a clear case of every action, there's a reaction. And, I love the manosphere. You guys have been great to me. I love the people here, but let's not act like it ain't no toxicity here. Okay. So you can only bash people for so long before there's a person on the opposite side who's going to grab all those people who hear that bashing and she's going to gather them up. Hurt people. And so now they've got a ringleader and they're coming after you. But look, you've done it to them for so many years. I mean, what did you listen? What did you really think was going to happen? And I love your statement. And you said all the married women should band together. But we've been preaching for all the married men to get together and say something for a long time. And that never happened. We've talked to you about it, Mike. Why don't the married men stand up and say how happy they are in marriages and all of these things? Never happens. How many weeks do we do that?
So I want you to notice a clear difference. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And I want to make it very clear. I'm unbiased. I don't follow this lady. I'm not one of those people who takes the extreme or anything. I just come up with solutions. I like for us to all be in harmony because I do think we need to be better as a community. We do best when we're together. We do better when we're together. And that's my only goal.
Okay, so there was one clear difference I want you to notice between I don't know if I identify as manosphere or not. I'm still trying to understand what and who the hell the manosphere is. But there's one clear difference I want you to notice about most men, like me, especially in this space, and the women like her. I am the example of what I want men to be. I preach marriage because I am married, right? So I'm not here telling anybody what to do anything. Run my rap sheet, send a background check. I am who I say I am. That is the difference between most of the men and most of the women in this space. Me and that lady are polar opposites, right? So, like I said, I don't dig into her personal life, but she's like every statement she makes is actually contradictory to what's actually going on in her real life. She exposed that, right? So, that's as much as I can say for men speaking out. We do it with our actual lives.
That's what I was just about to. That's what I was gonna say. Is that when and I'm the same way, Trigger. Like the things that I talk about, I do in my real life. The things that I believe in, that's my real life. That's why I speak so passionately about it when I'm on these panels. And sometimes I may seem at odds with a lot of people, but that's because that's how I really live. And y'all heard me when I've gotten to debates with Ali or whatever, and they like, man, don't you understand how problematic marriage is? I'm like, I can't actively speak against something that I'm practicing.
Yeah.
I can understand, I can have empathy, but I can't actively speak against something that I practice. So, and if you actually go and you talk to men, they tell you what our job is as the men in our relationships. We try to explain that to the men in our lives. But some people just adamant on not wanting to deal with it. And that's why I don't expect her. That's why I said, I don't expect married women to try to outshine that. You can't. Just like I don't expect married men to be able to outshine some of the toxic things that, that are said in these spaces. Like, it is not our job to go and try to shout down, channels that actively are misogynist. I can't shout that down because they're going to do what they're going to do over there. All I can do is come over here in this space and be who I am and be the best version of me and talk to y'all about the things that I experience. And I don't expect women to go over there and try to shout down her because you can only let them live and let reality take care of them. Because your life, that's why I always ask people, what does your life tell you? Bump what everybody else is saying. Bump what I may say online. Bump what Trigger Mike may say. Bump what Trev may say. Kevin Samuel said. What does your actual life tell you about your situation? And how do you fix it? Because there is nothing we can tell you that's going to fix your situation. We can give you advice. We can try to counsel you, but the reality is your real life is going to tell you what's true and what isn't true.
So okay, I could go. Okay. Did y'all peep that though? Y'all see? Okay. So I had never seen her before until that particular show. And to be honest, some of her talking points I actually agreed with in regards to the leadership aspects and not many men understanding what leadership looks like. To be honest, I've heard you guys say that. So sometimes I think it's not the message, is the messenger. And I think that was part of what played out in that regard, is to have somebody that you already have disdain for, don't particularly care about, say, men are not being leaders. So in that regard, I did understand that. And I think it goes both ways. Women don't necessarily always recognize a leader. And men think that they're leaders and not necessarily are. And both of us suffer from the same situation, because if you didn't have a viable example to show you what leadership looks like as a man and as a woman, to understand what your role is under someone's leadership, you're both parties are trying to figure it out as they go. But one of the things that now listening to kind of her in another space, I think B. Taylor was just interviewing her. That's the only, after hearing this one, just listening a little bit. To me, she was totally different in the B. Taylor space than what I saw on that space. I did not hear her initially on the show talking about women don't need to be with men. What I heard more so was if they're not going to basically be what they need to be, then don't waste your time with them. That was what I received the first time. Mm-hmm. But listening to her in this space, it was more along the lines of, you don't need a man, you don't need to be with a man, at all. And that, I don't particularly agree with at all. Or even the part about, and I think she did say this in the show, that men are incapable of love. I totally disagree with that. I think that's the pinpoint for a lot of women that follow her, is because their experiences with men may not have been in a healthy relationship in which the right kind of love was exhibited. And so I think it created kind of like the female version of incels, the red pill did, because they weren't successful at relationships. And so now they've created a group of women that, a group of women who weren't successful in relationships, and now they're kind of banding together. And so I think that's where her audience is. But one of the things that I do want to say is, to your point, I think it was Mike who said, where are the married women, debating against her. I think, like most people, if you are in your own, your marriage, you're dealing with your kids, you're not even paying attention to that. You're taking care of your family, you're building, making sure your family's straight, you're happy in that environment. So you're not even, like I said, I didn't even hear about her until this show. So I don't think it's a matter of married women not stepping in. It's just married women are handling their business where it needs to be. And one of the other things that I noticed too is with the men in these spaces, I think we try to draw a very narrow definition of what a man needs to be or what a leader needs to be. And so when somebody doesn't fall within that narrow thing, then we say that they're not being a man or what have you. And I've seen a lot of times in this space where Marcus, which I do think that he's what I would consider a man's man, will say things like, don't focus on the women. You need to focus on yourself, build yourself. You need to, do these things. Oh, you do need to watch your tone and the way you deliver messages, things like that. And I hear a lot of pushback against him about him being a simp because he's saying this is the way that you interact with women. This is what you need to do if you want to have a healthy relationship. And he is actually a reflection of what Sweeney said, that he's a reflection of what he's living. But yet, because he doesn't fall in that, I guess, that narrow definition of what men in these spaces are saying men need to be, he's targeted and getting called a simp because he's not being like having this red pill rage. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Now, Marcus got to go after this. So I agree somewhat, because if you'll notice, I've never disagreed. Me personally, I've never disagreed with Marcus. What I'm trying to do, so what we do, remember, this is something I've actually started to notice. There are habits of highly effective people. I think Marcus is a highly effective man. I'm a highly effective man. And what we tend to do as highly effective men is forget that there are other men that may be going. So really what it is what happens when everything Marcus says is employed in a relationship as a strategy and it doesn't work. That's the conversation I'm trying to extend to, because that is what I believe is the greater issue here. After a man has changed himself, read all the books, done all the seminars, he doesn't curse, he's coming home at the same time every day, he doesn't cheat, I do not believe the average woman is ready to accept the blessing she is asking for. She has been practicing too many poor habits, such as following Princella the Queen Maker. That is my ultimate. So that's the extension of the conversation. You have never heard me say Marcus was wrong, because that's exactly what men need to do. But we always leave out a subsection of men who will still do that, but women won't respect them enough to comply. But Marcus got to take it away. He got to get in on this, man.
So I appreciate everything y'all said. And Trigger Mike, so that's kind of the frustrating point sometimes, because it's like I'm trying to explain a step-by-step process or tangible things that men can do on the regular in their everyday life in a relationship, or those type of things that can provide them with the relationship where I don't think it's going to be really possible for a woman that respects you not to move in the way you would like that relationship to go. Now, to the small outliers, they may need another solution, but they would have to present that problem in its full extent so we could really dissect it and see what's going on. I would suppose that if all the things that we talked about as far as valuable leadership traits, which is the point that the Princella was making when she was quoting Napoleon Hill, the things that you can agree with that I was saying you can't really disagree with, that is not her information. Those things I think we gloss over as men. And if you were to go down that list of traits, like if you pulled that list of traits up right now and we went through them, as a man, if you could ask yourself, do I fit and embody these traits? And if not, that might be the reason I'm getting some of the results that I'm getting. If you do embody them and then you don't get the results you want, then we can have a different discussion. But I would argue that I don't think most people have taken that type of self-reflection and really dissect themselves and have the intuition to know, like, hey, I'm lacking in this. That, like, for me, time has been an issue for me, just separating myself and doing the things I need to do. I know that's something that I lack, and I'm trying to improve on that thing. But you have to take self-reflection and figure out what is it that I need to improve on in order to get the results that I want. And that's what I think you could pull from that message. I'm always going to try and pull something positive out of a negative situation, because I don't believe you take losses. It's either a win or a lesson.
A
So
lesson,
I think that she has a lesson in the fact that she exists, right? There's a lesson from that. There's a segment of women who are extremely upset and have been hurt. And what did we do to cause that, right? So what can we do to prevent creating more of that energy? As men, being leaders, that is something that we have to take upon ourselves, right? The onus always falls back on us.
Ultimate
so in knowing
accountability.
we got to pre-solve for things. And in pre-solving, you look at the landscape, you look at the problems, right? We're supposed to be solution-based. We look at the problem and we dissect it and say, okay, this is the outcome that I want. This is the outcome that I'm getting. Let's pick this thing apart. Let's step by step analytically create a process to get to the actual end goal. And I think if we did that, more of us would have the ideal end goal. That's my personal opinion. I've seen it work. Maybe not with every male, but the men I've seen attempt it. I don't see them having the results that would make them not want to continue in that way.
You know what? Not only do I agree with you, there's one characteristic of leadership that we keep leaving out, and I think this is a fault of the Black community in general. We keep trying to save everybody, like we can actually do that shit. One of the characteristics of leadership is that you cast out those who refuse to follow. So men picking, like basically making better decisions to say, this is what I will not tolerate and I will not be moved on my boundaries, is probably one of the biggest steps that men need to employ. Because what they want to do is be like, nah, I can make any woman comply. No, there's some women who are out there doing their thing. Nah, anybody gives you any bit of red flag, don't matter how big her booty is, no matter how wet the coochie is, she's out. She can't fuck with you no more. I think that might be one of the first things that men need to learn. But all right, let's get some of these super chats. Then I got the next question coming. I got to drink some water real quick. Somebody please read that.
I got you. Dad GXD Moses for the $5. Original symbol of African people were a man, woman, and child. Leaders have always been men, but women always have a say. We are not ignorant. Come on, family.
Yeah, I agree.
Harrison Davis, what's up? With the $5. Salute. Good guy, buddy.
My man HD.
EBD, Enter the Black Dragon with the $10 ball. The difference between black men or black women and men is that you can see black men holding each other accountable in real time on the Trigger Mike show. The show is about serious discussions with successful black men.
Thanks, EBD.
EBD again, Enter the Black Dragon for $5. We know that we know what femininity and leadership is. You can't fake it or learn it. It's within you wherever you go, and we all see it and respond accordingly. M. Dizot with the $10. She killed her own point. She said men don't read leadership books and can't lead, etc. She read the book. She read the books, was a military leader. She read the books, was a military. All right, she read the books, was a military leader, and still chose the wrong man to follow and marry. Hypocrite for sure. It's interesting.
All right, Lord Giatron.
All right. All men are natural born leaders. We are designed to be husbands and fathers for our families. A woman who forces herself into leadership roles brings disaster.
All right, if you're just tuning in, this is a special broadcast. Pretty dope people. Deep thinking panel. Ain't gonna be no fights on this panel, so just in case y'all wondering for that, we vibe very well in this group. So I do have a next question queued up. Where is it at? We're gonna let Inaz go first. I'll be right back. I need some water. All right. Are the leadership traits she listed, if you watch that panel, valuable for men to learn? Inaz, what do you think?
Absolutely. I don't think that's like a complicated question. I will add, not just men, but for women to learn too, not to exercise, but to be able to identify. I think sometimes women are taught what leadership looks like from one man's perspective. And to what Mistaken was saying earlier, they navigate the world with this narrow definition of what leadership looks like. I think in understanding the qualities, it gives a little bit more room and grace for different applications of leadership. And I think that'll allow women to choose better, essentially.
Oh, I guess I'll go. So the leadership traits that she listed, I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember all of them, but I do remember some of the ones that she said. And I do agree that these are some things that I think all leaders, when we say good leaders, are attributes that they should have. Um, I think sometimes, though, one of the things that are missing, again, when I say that narrow mindset or narrow lane of what leadership looks like, is one part of that I think goes missing, especially in these spaces. And what she actually kind of talked about, in terms of leadership not necessarily needing to be demanded, right? A leader commands, respect and things like that. They don't necessarily have to demand it, and it's not forceful. And the reason that they do it, they're able to do it is because they're living examples, right? So they're just moving the way that they move, and people see that and then automatically gravitate towards that because they want to be a part of it, right? So you don't have to tell somebody you need to follow me. And a lot of times in these spaces, not to say that women don't have work to do, they absolutely do. I don't think there's an argument with that. But a lot of times in these spaces, it's about men demanding that women need to do this. You need to follow a man. You need to do. And that's not what leadership is. Leadership is a reflection of the results that you are leading in your life. Like, so if your life is successful, like Sweeney was saying that he's talking, I can't speak of nothing other than what I'm already living. And if you having the results of whatever the leadership style that you're using and it's working, people that want that same thing reflected in your life is going to follow you because they want to see how that works. So I think what she was saying in terms of the leadership traits, they are valuable to learn, but you have to determine of those traits what how you can apply it. Because I'm also be honest, I don't think everybody can apply some of those traits. Sometimes it's in you, sometimes you can learn it, but other times you may not have the full list of it.
All right. What gives us the idea that we all should be leaders anyway, right? I mean, if you don't have followers, then how can you even be a leader? We're not all designed to lead, right? And it's not a bad thing if you're not a leader, right? And you might not be a major leader, but you can still lead locally, right? You should be able to lead your household and everything else. And I'll honestly say most of us didn't feel the need to answer that particular question that day. But who hasn't read the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene? Who hasn't read a bunch of leadership books already as men? But I mean, I don't think anybody decided to patronize her and literally just list books. But we all have read leadership books one way or the other, right? So, I mean, and even in reading those books, one thing that I've learned listening to it was like, these are things that I've already knew already just from me having to apply them to real life. You're not going to become a leader from reading books. It's just the way it is. You're going to be a leader naturally. Some of us are built those qualities and some of us aren't. You can probably add to it, and it's not going to hurt to read the leadership books, but not where you're to manifest leadership from. That's just not the case. Most of those things that you hear in those books, you're like, okay, this is cool, but this is what I already do every day. Just by dealing with enough people, right? Your experience is going to help you lead. Your wisdom is going to help you lead. It's not going to come out of a book. You surely can enhance it, but that's not any way that you're going to become a leader. And most of us aren't designed to be.
So I just wanted to address that real quick because, excuse me, Sweeney had touched on it a little bit earlier about people's reality informing whether they're making the right decisions or not. The men on this panel, I think we can all agree, are fairly exceptional men. The average man may not have, let's be fair, right? The average man may not have that experience. They may not have the experience that would allow them to build those tools or that skill set. The average person may not have access to people who would be able to instill those things in them, right? When we constantly harp in this space about men who were raised by single mothers, we also need to have the expectation that there was no father to instill some of these values. And if you weren't in the military or didn't have a mentor or didn't play sports, or you know what I mean, if you don't have that, reading is one of those tools that allows you to expand past your existing experience. I understand it's not the only way or a fundamental way, but for those who don't necessarily have access, who have that interest, who have that desire to want to stretch themselves in that way, I think we shouldn't knock reading the way that we have, because it's possible. It's possible to read things and start to look at the world a little bit differently.
Who else wants to go?
No, I was
go?
going to agree. One, you got Sweeney?
I'll ask if Shane went, but no, you can go, bro. Because I got a question for you real quick, and then, but let me ask the question first, because you the one, I know what you're about to say. So, where did she cite that source?
So I watched her lives before. So she cited how she goes over each of those principles with the women within her chat, and what she's doing is cultivating the ability to recognize those things while showing them herself, which then creates a positive feedback loop for the women who are looking for these traits and then seeing them in her. So when she came over to the platform, it created a validation loop, because the traits that she's showing her chat, that they've been detail oriented in discussing how each one pinpoints effective leadership. She was able to come over and then by the interaction say, see, look, this is why the men aren't XYZ.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna let Shane go first, and then I'm gonna follow up, because
Just gonna volunteer me, huh?
I thought you wanted to talk.
I heard her explanation. I get the whole book thing, and I agree with Inaz and Mistake, everybody who's spoken thus far. I do believe books can help you, but I also agree with is it Trey? I don't have my glasses on. Trev. Couldn't see if it was a V or a Y. Anyhow, I agree with him as well. Not everybody is meant to be a leader. I mean, if you want to be the leader of a corporation, sure. Community, sure. For your household, I would think if you have a grandfather, or she has a father, or someone else who leads the household, and within your family, like a family dynamic, that would be a person to go to for guidance to show you how to be a leader. You don't necessarily have to go to books, because you got to remember, back in the day, they didn't have books. They did fairly well for their household on a household level. However, if you don't have those things, like Inaz stated, maybe you can go to a book, or maybe find someone, a mentor, who can help you and guide you in the right direction for that. I don't think it's always you have to read a book just for the family dynamic, but that's just my opinion.
So I'm looking at this, and there's a number of things I want to touch on. Trev said he doesn't believe everybody can be a leader. And I think that goes against human nature, because Chicago Really in the chat, God bless him, said that the first person you're supposed to lead is yourself. So, but what the conundrum to me is that I asked Princella on the show, I said, what is it that the average woman has done that makes her above being led by the average man?
Best question of the night.
What I've come to realize is that it's the leadership of self. They say, I can lead myself. And then they say, I can lead those I control, which is their children. So therefore, I don't need male leadership. Because all of those qualities all of those qualities exist in everybody. Some have more of one than the other, but we all have those qualities because your life forces you to have them. And the ones that don't have those qualities tend to wind up in fucked up situations, i.e. jail, i.e. dead, or what have you. But all of us, at most normal people, have each of those qualities because your life makes you aware of those things. Your parents teach you those things, whether male or female. Then you have to deal with teachers. Then you have to deal with the men in your life, and then you have to deal with your boss. Then you have to deal with other people. So it forces you, and not only that, but you have to deal with yourself, because you have to have a plan for yourself in order for you to be able to, like, how do you go out and get a job? You have to create a plan to go out there and get a job. It doesn't just come to you. So all of these leadership traits, everybody has them. But the problem is that we think that we have to be the leaders of other people rather than understanding that your leadership starts with yourself, and then you build family, and then you become the leadership role within your family.
Yep.
Sweetie, I only said it that way because the point that she was making was she was talking about leading others, right? She compared us and how we are all on a panel and speaking. She was literally talking about leading others. So I understand what you're saying, but I was just going based on what the topic was that particular night, with what she said when she was talking about leading others.
Okay.
Yeah. You gonna respond? I think I want to go real quick. So on the topic of leadership, I'm 100% with Trev. Y'all, we've already had long group chats about this and how I feel about leadership. To Inaz's point, I cannot, right? I am a director of health administration programs. All I do is read shit all day, okay, in order to help students learn better and create, and I write curriculum, right? I cannot get away from reading. So I cannot sit here and advocate that nobody should be reading or learning from it. But it's interesting that we hear this coming from a woman, and nobody ever thought to ask a competent man how leadership is learned. So I'm gonna explain it. When women talk about leadership, I think what we have done mistakenly through this gender war is think that we can only describe a leader as leader among men, leader of men, the leader of leaders. That is a mistake, okay? Because men learn leadership through competence more than anything. And what women don't understand is that whether a man is a leader among men or not, whether he's a leader of leaders or not, it does not have any weight on his ability to lead you and his own family. That is where we made the mistake. Okay, this world is actually ran by men who follow. They follow the leadership of the alpha, if we want to call them that, of other competent men to improve themselves. And this is where women need to learn this. Okay, leadership is a trial and error job. I have read, in fact, I hate talking about this shit. The reason why I mentioned the fact that she was a woman was because we allowed her to direct the conversation into her. I have learned more about leadership through books that were not directed directly about leadership. Like somebody said, it is about control of self. All right. Most of my reading has been done through my career, texts that I was assigned to read through leadership programs. All right. Read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You will learn more about leadership in that book than the 48 Laws of Power. I promise you. Learn to control yourself first so that you may lead and have temperament and be proactive. Think win-win. All of the stuff that you learn in that book. We allowed her to direct that conversation because after it's all said and done, and after we have to read, we have to apply through practical application. And that is where men become leaders ultimately. For the women, I want you to understand this. If all of you want a leader of leaders, you will remain single. Because most men learn through trial and error and must be given grace to do so. That's how I learn. I will not let you shame me for it. Because the person I became through all of my mistakes, can't nobody fuck with it. Not seeing me on my worst day. Right? And I proclaim to the world that I had to screw up 1,000 times and be given the grace to try again. And that is how men learn leadership. How the hell is somebody going to tell me that I learned leadership through a book? What I do is take the personal accounts and thoughts of people who have led throughout history to compare their experience to mine, to sharpen my skills as a leader. That is what reading is for. But the practical application and that trial and error is what makes us leaders. I will never let a woman lead me in a conversation like that again. You do not learn leadership that way. My mic is muted.
Fire.
I just want to. Go ahead. I was just going to say one point because I do agree with you. When we were talking about reading, I think the point, I think what had got lost was the fact of the way that it came across in terms of you don't need to read in order to lead. Whereas I'm quite sure that a lot of those who you said, you know, they follow other leaders, that part of their leadership, as far as I know, being involved, not necessarily involved in conversation of men, but hearing conversation of men who are leaders will say, yo, did you read that book about such a, like they're discussing things that they've read and passing along that knowledge to other men. And so I do think it's very important that, yes, while application, trial and error is important, also gaining a knowledge base outside of just that is also equally important. So I just want to encourage you because I know as Black people, like I said before, that a lot of times that adage about, you know, you want to hide something from Black people, put it in a book. You know, so we do need to read. And so I definitely want to make that point. The other point, Mike, that you said about is giving you guys grace as you're learning to lead. And I agree with that. The caveat to that, though, too, is you have to give your followers grace to learn how to follow as well, because both of those roles are new and are learned through trial and error. And it seems that sometimes that in this space, we want women to just know how to submit. Oh, they got to come to me already knowing how to submit. They got to come to me already knowing how to follow. And the truth of the matter is just like leading is a skill, following, knowing how to follow is a skill as well. So we do have to give each other grace to learn how to play our positions.
I would say I would disagree, considering the fact that I would think that all of us are taught how to follow. You're forced to follow from the moment you're born. You're forced to follow. You have to follow your parents. You have to follow your teacher. You have to follow the adults in your community. The problem isn't that we have a following problem. It's the fact that people don't want to follow. Because once you get to it,
by choice and following by force, so to speak. So the people you're talking about following, you have to follow your parents, right? You have to fall under their authority because you can't take care of yourself. Teachers, same thing. What I'm saying is in relationship between a man and woman as a husband and wife, or in relationship, that type of following is totally different than the other ones that you just described.
But I would say that I think the reason for that is because it's been out, because for so long you're taught how to lead your family from those that come before you. Because you pass down, each person passes down the knowledge of their family. You normally take on the traits of those that come before you. Your leaders, the qualities, your truth, your beliefs, what you eat, how you sleep, what you breathe, what your environment. You take on the qualities of those that come before you. What we've noticed is that once you separate yourself via adulthood, you tend to reject what we're starting to see is that a lot of people are rejecting where they come from. And that's why we have a following problem, is because once you become an adult, you're like, I don't want to do what my mother did. And for a lot of men, I don't want to do what my dad did. I don't want to do what my grandfather did. I want to do it this way. And you have a lot of women saying they want to go that way because we're rejecting what came before us. Because you can't tell me that we're only 40 years removed from an 80% marriage rate. That's some of the people that are still married are still alive today. We're only 40 years removed. That's not a long time. That means we saw what worked and said, I don't want to do it anymore, because we let people pass down. We listen to the trauma more than we listen to the benefits of it. And we outright rejected it. And so now you have a bunch of men and a bunch of women who reject their ancestral knowledge. And that's why we have a problem with leadership and followership in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my own theory, but man, correct me if I'm wrong.
So, Sweeney, I think you're right for the generation that comes before us. I think that's true. For our generation and the generations after, I wholeheartedly disagree, because the family is not there to instill those values. Where people are learning to follow is social media, it's YouTube, it's the internet. They are learning to follow their desires, their wants, their needs, and nothing else. People don't know how to lead anymore, and people don't know how to follow anymore, because the only thing that you're following is what your heart wants. That goes for men and women alike. Because family was undone before us, there isn't really people to do it anymore. And sure, some people had the grace of their grandparents. Some people didn't have access to that. Some people grew up in communities where they only knew less than a handful of people who were still married, right? People don't actually know anymore. And I think the grace that was mentioned before with Trigger Mike and Mistaken, I think is like, it's crucial to have in this time, because nobody knows. Most people don't know what they're doing. Most people haven't figured themselves out enough to attain the skill set to do the things that they're required to do, that seems to be innate.
Here's the issue I have with that. How would you be able to distinguish the difference between this is a person that I need to give a bit of grace to versus this is a person that's going to make sure that I am in a toxic relationship forever? Because if a person does not understand how to lead or follow, that relationship is probably going to be toxic for the duration of the relationship. So how would you be able to distinguish if this is somebody who you should give that grace to?
Okay, so I got something that's been effective for me, right? So my premise is that as men, we set parameters for how relationships are supposed to go. So in that, you can instruct how you want to engage in dialogue, right? So when you have a tough conversation, or it's a time where it would naturally turn into a fight in other relationships, you can pause that, right? Create a space where you and your wife, or you and your man can talk to each other, right? Where if it gets too difficult or you feel yourself getting upset, let's pause and step away. Not in the conversation, but pause and step away. Because essentially, if I love you, you love me, we are not trying to hurt each other. Keeping that in mind, we can have the grace to say, I'll take a minute. I'll stop for a second and step back. Once I do that, I have the chance to gather my thoughts and then figure out if they're rooted in emotion or logic. Because emotional, how you saying the wildest stuff. And once it's out there, you cannot take it back. And people will harbor those things, which will create a negative feedback loop, which will want their lick back. So it'll just be y'all the worst things from each other, just pit pat back and forth. And that's how you get in situations where she's using my deepest, darkest secrets against me. Because essentially you guys have foregone the ability to say, I love you more than I want to hurt you, and said, I hurt you, I want to hurt you, or I'm more hurt than I feel love for you. And that's always going to have a negative feedback loop. So once you put those parameters up where you could step away and then come back to the conversation, you absolutely have to come back to the conversation. Some people will step away and then ignore it. That will make the situation worse. You have to say, I need time, and just so I can sit with my thoughts, and then come back to it. Once you come back to it and you're ready, you might even need to step away again. You need to do that as many times as possible in order to ensure that you don't say the most hurtful things you can to the person in order to elicit the same type of hurtful response. Once you understand that you both are trying to work towards a common goal with mutual respect and love, then you can move forward. A way to identify if someone is not capable of doing that, or when you should step away, is so as men, respect is something, is how we interpret love, right? So if what you're getting is disrespect to your attempt to be respectful in resolving this and setting the parameters, it shouldn't be too many more chances of that, right? So one time they might not understand. You explain to them the detriment of what they're doing, and they do it again. without allowing, you know, that space that you're trying to create to exist, you might need to step away. They might not be ready at that point.
All right. Anybody else, or can I
Yeah,
get the
I
super
just
chat?
Marcus did a really great job of answering that question from the male perspective. I wanted to respond from the female perspective. I think in a world where city girls and sexy red are the it thing for women, I think there's a lot of unlearning that women need to do. I think understanding that male attention for sex is not male attention for relationship. Having a sense of self that's grounded and rooted in who you actually are and your morals, your values, and not what the world tells you to do will allow you to distinguish the difference between a toxic relationship and a relationship that's stretching you and growing you. Because if we're honest, relationships do that, and they can be uncomfortable. That doesn't mean it's toxic. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be learning and growing. And I think that it takes a woman who really understands herself and is grounded in her morals and values to have the discernment to distinguish between one or the other. And I think we've lost that art.
I don't, you know, it's crazy. I don't think we lost it because if you ask somebody what do they want in a partner, they will directly describe the silent generation, whether male or female. They would tell when they say, "What do you want in a man?" They would describe their great grandfather. Because I know we always say our grandfather and our grandmother, but that is not the group that were married at an 80% clip. It was the silent generation. They would describe their grandmother and grandfather. The problem is when you ask them, well, what do you want to be in a relationship? And that's when the waters get murky. We know, I think we all know the blueprint, but you know what I mean? To Anaz's point, I don't think most people want to adhere to what is expected of them personally in that relationship. Because you know what you want, and you would describe your grandfather, and you would describe your grandmother every single step of the way. But the moment it comes around and they cycle back around to you and they say, okay, well, what is your job in that situation? And that's when you start to see people beatboxing and not really understanding, or they oh, well, I'm not gonna do that. Oh, I'm definitely no, I can't do that. Sacrifice. What do you mean sacrifice? Duty. What do you mean duty? I don't want to, like, we watched that when a woman, when that woman and that man were getting married, and he started reading off the vows between the two of them. As long as the vows were directed at him, she was nodding because she knew what she wants in a man. But the moment it cycled around to her and what was the expectations of her as a woman, that's when it got muddy. And I think that's how we're starting to see. That's what we're seeing in the late millennials, the millennials, Gen X, and Gen Z right now, is that they know what they want, but they don't know how to be what they need to be for that relationship to work.
So
or they,
we've become a self-serving generation now, right? There's so many different factors that contribute to that. Just the fact that we have less children as we go on, right? You have smaller families. Children are able to be more entitled. They're more privileged, right? So they don't have to deal with other people. They don't have to learn how to get along with people like they used to. And right now we're in a microwave society. We want gratification right now. Things have become way too simple for us, and we want everything that we want, and we want it now. And we've never been put in a position where we've had to produce, right? Gen X and maybe even baby boomers have done a horrible job at making sure that their children understood what duty was and understood responsibility. And now all we care about is ourselves.
So I think that further proves the point that I was making, right? Alongside what Marcus was saying. When a woman doesn't know herself, she can assume she can be a wife to the man that she wants and just think that everything's going to work out. Because that man doesn't want the woman that she actually is. If that woman really knows herself, she knows that that's not going to be a lasting relationship or marriage, right? She's going to pick somebody where it will last. When a man has the parameters for the relationship and builds the foundation for it, he's not choosing that woman because He knows this isn't going to last, right? The knowing yourself is not knowing what you want. It's understanding your limitations, it's understanding your strengths, it is understanding your weaknesses, your areas of growth, what you're capable of, and even just a little bit beyond. When you know yourself in that way, thoroughly and truly, you're not going to do things that are going to put yourself in a situation where you have to start all over again. You're going to set yourself up for success. And that's when you truly know yourself. When we just know the things that we want and it's just a shopping list, sometimes produce goes bad. Sometimes we get a bad batch.
Damn. So you calling modern people bad cabbage? That's what they are? Okay. Just making sure. Lord Geotron, $5. Women are not meant to lead. Tell one queen who made herself into a queen at any point in any kingdom at any time in human history. Please tell me. Well, I mean, no. All of the post 2000 era women are all queens, so I beg to differ, sir. Plenty of them.
I think what he meant was like
I know what the hell he meant, sweet. What the fuck? I know what he meant.
Man, you
I can't believe you took me seriously right there. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, Elam, $5. All men are leaders, good or bad. The best leaders were the best followers. Women are absolutely supposed to lead their children is husband.
I think he meant not their husband, right?
Oh, maybe. Good interpretation there. I was lost. Diamond J Rose, appreciate that with the $5 super sticker. Elam again, $5. Women are supposed to lead their children via their husband. Correction. Then why would mom always say, "You want me to tell your dad?" Well, I can't. Listen, I cannot agree with this logic more. I find that moms tend to struggle without dad or the threat of his logic and discipline. It's not about moms and their ability. It's unnatural for moms to impose themselves in a disciplinary manner. Like my wife will be at HEB and I guess they're acting up and I'll just get a random ass call like, damn, did she catch a flat tire? Why she calling me? Your son acting up. That boy's in the back like, no, you called daddy. No. You see what I'm saying? So that's what men are for. And I really hope women would use us wisely, right? But
wouldn't that make us the enforcers of their leadership?
Well, the other
over the children
too, though, is that doing that all the time takes away your authority as the mom when you're depending on a dad to always discipline. And I know you guys like are in education, so that's one of the things that you taught. You have to have command of your classroom. You can't always call the principal to come in and manage your class, because what will begin to happen is the kids will continue to act up and
not only are you 100% correct, I think what women suffer from is that they try to lead and discipline the same way men do. Like I always say, women can try to emulate what men do. You just can't represent what we represent to children. So when women try to lead, especially children and teenagers in their classrooms that way, I literally today just coached one of my instructors on this. You need to lead with grace. You came in like hot fire after me. That student shut the hell up when it was me because I'm a man. You came in like hot fire and started the whole argument up again because she came in trying to impose herself, right? And for some reason that makes woman on woman, they just start arguing on the Zoom, instructor and student, right? Until so if there's a different way for women to keep command, you're absolutely right. They do need to keep their authority, but it's graceful. I have never listened to a woman imposing herself to try to get me to listen. Usually goes wrong. But if you ever seen that Betty Boop clip where she was just walking on stage and all the men were kind of falling, like oh my God, like you said, that women have a different way of getting,
We cannot lead because there is no threat of violence or force, like when you're dealing with males. So there is a totally difference in terms of your approach in exerting your authority over your, class or over your children. So I definitely agree with that. We can't lead the same way a man does, but always going to the man to reinforce something when they, or the times when they're not there, then that's just giving that kid the permission to act a fool and cut up only when you're not around. And we're not working with that. You know what I'm
I would
saying?
say you're right. Yeah, use it sparingly. Use it. Keep it in your back pocket. Elam again says the greatest point of our country was when men were the majority of teachers, because we already lived with the students. We already lived what the students wanted in life. Mr. Me Too, $5.57. That's very specific. Are you using code language here? All right. This whole leadership from a book madness is whack. It sounds like an excuse for rebellious women. Salute guys and gals. B Horde Chairman, $20. Behold a pale horse. Shouts to the secret societies of America. Knowledgeable men and women on the panel. Keep dropping gems. Oh yeah, that's what we do with this group. No doubt. Elam, $2. Rejected the silent generation. B Dubs, y'all done. Not these ones on the panel. Some of them done, but not these ones. My man, Mr. Me Too again. Y'all have some kind of code going on. $20.57. Does anybody want to clue me in? I'm Nigerian. I don't know if this is some American shit y'all doing or what. But y'all make can somebody read this one? There's a icon like right over
I got it. Y'all make leader and follower concepts extraordinarily difficult for no reason. It's simple. Find a guy early in life you want to see win. Stay down with him to the finish line and ride off your victory laps after you reach your goals.
That's the formula.
It's literally
for most successful married women. That's the formula right there.
I tried to tell him, Mr. Me, was that Mr. Me Too who said that?
Mm-hmm. Again, $5.57. Marcus, you are the dark Illuminati interpreter. Can you please help me out? Please.
The dark Illuminati interpreter. I maybe talking about the FN 57 and
I don't know, bro.
That's what because I was like 556. I get 55. I was sitting there trying to rack my brain.
I would
maybe
definitely
2 3 times 2. I don't know. So he gonna have to tell us what that means.
What, Mr. Me Too?
You know what? It's probably a foreign currency, and it's converting it to dollars, maybe. Oh. All right, but Mr. Me, I can see this one. Mr. Me Too, $5.57. Everyone too busy trying to stunt instead of doing what works. I'm done fussing for the night. Great show, guys and gals. If you're just tuning in, this is our late night rendition. All right, King Talk will be back on next week. Let's get into the next question. Anybody can go on this one. Let me see. We got some good ones here. Are women being taught to be selfish? If so, how does this affect their relationships? And by relationships, I do mean any relationship in their life. I do believe that people should be consistent in their relationships, in your friendships, in your faith, in your romantic relationships. You need to be consistent and measured in, mind, body, spirit, all that type of stuff. So I do mean not just romantic relationships, all relationships. Anybody can go.
I still was trying to find out what's the 557. I seen something about all right, and angelic principles or something. I don't know. You're gonna have to tell us. You said women being I think we all being taught to be being selfish. I think that we in a dopamine, like an extreme dopamine addiction, right? And the thing about I think it was social media studies about, was it the likes on or hearts on the post, that every time you receive one, it's a dopamine hit similar to like a narcotic drug. And over time, you need more and more of those hits in order to satisfy that need with all addictions. So if we in a space where your individual personal gratification is getting pinpointed, dialed in on, and I think they've been under like strife because they've seen how they've targeted the algorithm to make it even more addictive, to make people get even more dopamine hits. So you cannot remove yourself from it. It's hard when you have something in your place that you place above all other things, like your personal gratification, right? So in that situation, it's going to be difficult for you to see the larger picture for men and women. that the family needs to exist in, which requires sacrifice, and to not touch that dopamine center because it's delayed gratification. So I think we just training ourselves through the algorithm, which is another, I guess we say, a knock on social media because it's putting us back into that loop.
Nice. All right, Shan, we haven't heard from you in a while. Go ahead.
Well, so I had to think about it because at first I thought, no, I think we choose to be selfish. But then I have to think back, and some of the things I hear, not necessarily my life, but I've heard, women raising their sons, and they're saying, hey, don't get married, live your life, don't get married in your 20s, wait till your 30s, make sure you live, your life to the fullest. And then sometimes we talk to our daughters, we say, oh, travel, go get your education, be independent, don't rely on a man. So I do think in that sense that we are taught to be selfish. Yeah, that's all I got. But originally I thought we choose it, but I have heard those things come from parents. So in that sense, I think we've been taught.
I was gonna kind of say what Marcus was saying in terms of, I think we are both taught to be selfish, and I think that that's part of the reason why relationships don't work in this day and age, is because when we're in relationship, the idea is that we are supposed to serve each other. But I think a lot of times when we're in relationship, we're looking how that person can serve us and meet our needs. And so because of that, staying married, maintaining long-term relationships, whether they're with, with your girlfriends or guy friends, or, just relationships in general, is because I think society as a whole have taught and reinforced the idea of meeting your needs first. Like live, like kind of what Shan was saying, live life to the fullest, look at what are you bringing to the table? Like that, to me, the undertones of questions like that is not really about what skill sets do you have that would help create a lasting relationship. It's more along the lines of, what can I look forward to getting from you? What are you bringing to the table? Meaning, what can I take? And I think our society reinforces that through social media, through looking at celebrities as our, as the guide to how life should be. And we miss out on all of those characteristics that individuals need to have in order to build and maintain a lasting relationship.
Nice.
So, like I believe that music is a reflection of life, I believe social media is the same thing. I think social media is a reflection of the things we've already felt. And this is why I believe that I don't think we're being taught to be selfish. I think we're choosing it. Because there is nobody on this panel. I don't believe there's anybody in the chat. I don't believe there's been anybody I've ever encountered that wasn't showed what it takes to deal with other people, let alone the opposite sex in a relationship type environment. They tell you have to be selfless. We've seen, all of us have seen positive relationships where it requires selflessness. So, but we also see the patterns of selfishness, and it's self-gratifying when you're selfish. A lot of people believe that you can get more out of it if you care about yourself more than you care about others. So we absolutely choose, because we're presented with both. You're presented with selflessness and you're presented with selfishness. You've seen what results both of them get, and you make a choice on which one you want to go with. And I think when it comes to relationships, we've seen what selflessness looks like, but we choose selfishness because it's self-gratifying. It's instantaneous. You don't have to worry about nobody else. What do you, when people talk about why they don't want relationships, what do they say? I get to do what I want. I don't have to answer anybody. What do they say when they say they don't want children? I can fly wherever I want. I can work however many hours I want. We're not taught to be selfish. We choose to be selfish because we're taught everything, and you make a choice. That's my position on it.
Does
Go ahead,
anyone else
Miss Deacon.
want to say anything before I?
Go ahead, Miss Deacon. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll go after mistake.
I was going to say, I think Sweeney is speaking from a perspective of his experience, right? Like, because even as children, you have to taught not to be selfish because initially you are born like your world is about you and getting your needs met. So your parents are supposed to teach you how to not be selfish. Like you see it when you're young, you see a toy, you want that toy, and somebody comes to touch your sibling come to play with your toy, and you fight them because you don't want to share, right? And so ultimately we are, I think, born to want our needs met and look to those who are going to meet those needs. And then we're conditioned in terms of society and what our cultural values are, things like that, are taught those cultural norms in how to be, not to be selfish and things like that. So as educators, I know we see the results of children who are brought up in situations that are not taught these cultural norms, and they don't respect people's space, they don't respect people things, they don't respect people in general. And I think that is a result of not being taught how to coexist with other people through, not being selfish. If parents are not in the house to reinforce those skills, or they're watching their parents be selfish, then in turn they're learning selfish behavior. So it's a cycle. So it definitely has to be taught. That's just not something that you pick up, especially if your environment isn't an example of what that looks like.
That was interesting what you just said. Cause I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm gonna tell you what I took from it. It sounds like what you're saying is, or suggesting is, that people are born selfish and have to be taught selflessness. So are people really being taught to be selfish if throughout your life you're being taught to be selfless and to go against your nature of selfishness?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting concept.
You know what? I will say, in the extreme sense, we are being taught to be selfish because we still care for people, right? It's the society did not progress this way by people being selfish. It's them creating community and seeing the need for selflessness ultimately. But as it pertains to the actual question, are women being taught to be selfish? Absolutely. And what I think it stems from is that age-old Kevin Samuel saying your mothers and grandmothers failed you. Most women, that is what happened. And what I believe a lot of women were doing at that time, they were projecting out a fantasy of theirs, a selfish fantasy of theirs. Get an education, go see the world, which really meant hoe around, go jump on as many dicks as possible. That was, before you have to settle down. Because one of the gripes women have with men, and I think this stems from that fantasy, is that when you teach fantasy, people cannot always, meaning your children, cannot always interpret the nuance. I think a lot of women blame men simply because life is hard and we can't make it better for you, at least not instantaneously, right? So that fantasy carried over into a lot of women's reality today. They still believe that the world is supposed to be easy and that being a mother is not supposed to be hard. Being a wife is not supposed to be hard. All of these things are hard to do for any person. And one of the worst part about this type of selfishness is that it's outside, especially it's outside of a woman's nature. I believe only maybe 2 women out of 10 that say they don't want a husband and they don't want kids. And the worst part about it is society is selling them that they don't want these things. And they will hit 40, 50 and start to realize the value of companionship, no matter who it's with. Because none of the opposite is true. Women that are single don't actually do better. They're not actually happier. Do you see those articles that they're writing? They have to use certain contexts. They won't even describe what happiness means. They just say the word happiness, right? So all they mean is that you have more free time. What the hell are you going to do with all that free time when you're 50? You see what I'm saying? Nobody ever thinks about that. And men, we've been taught to have as much foresight to make decisions early to say, yeah, I don't want to be alone by the time I'm 50. That would be kind of terrible. And I'm probably going to want kids too. I'm going to want my spitting image and a legacy to pass on. And I want to teach my son and my daughter. And like we have to understand that we want these things biologically. All right. And women were taught to think the opposite. Therefore, many of them will suffer. One of the things I want y'all to notice about a lot of these fake ass gurus out here, that everything they're telling you is dramatic. It's the worst case scenario. They take the minimum of us men and try to make it seem like the maximum. Most men are slave owners and masters. Most men are woman beaters, when that the opposite is actually true. Right? So they're still teaching this stuff today, and it makes me sick. Can't stand these hoes out here. I'm sorry, not these people out here. But I think you had something to input.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you and Mistaken going ahead of me, because you touched on a few of the points that I was going to touch on, so it helps me be a little bit more concise. I do believe that we are innately selfish, men and women alike. I think women have been taught to be selfish from the beginning of time. If not, we wouldn't have things like hypergamy. I think what's changed is that the application of selfishness has changed. The goal of selfishness is no longer legacy, family, community. The goal of selfishness has become self, right? So the motivation behind the selfishness has shifted. And I think that's what has caused, partially at least, the situation that we're in now when it comes to female or women's selfishness.
All right. Who didn't get in on this?
I didn't. I kind of waited because I ruined it a little bit, because I pretty much that was like the last thing I said on the other topic where I was talking about this. But I did want to kind of pose a question. What on earth that we do as humans isn't selfish? Is a question. What act do we do that isn't selfish?
For me, it's pretty easy. A
Go
man
ahead.
giving up his entire provision for his family and allowing them to eat first, take nothing for himself before them, is pretty selfless.
But why do you do that?
Duty. He believes.
Okay, so that's the duty, right? But who believes that?
I think men feel that innately. A need to protect.
Exactly. So you're following your own selfish feeling at the end of the day, right? No matter how you think about it, you're following your values. What we understand as duty is our own personal values. So it's I can't even see how it's possible to not be selfish, because no matter what, even the acts that we consider to be selfless are only considered selfless because we think so. That's our belief. So what is not selfish?
Yeah, because I think the birds and the animals would have a different opinion on that. You ain't lying. They'd be like, "Hey, humans, y'all some selfish bastards."
That's a good perspective. All right, Shannon, you went right. All right, let me get Lord Geatron's super chat. Lord Geatron, $2. Where's all the men from overseas who want AB dubs? Mr. Me Too, again, laughing like hell. It's nothing strange, fellas. 57 is the Trail Bentley tax via the Roger Live Report show. That's all. Support black men media. All right, thanks, man. Thanks for letting us know you weren't trying to indoctrinate us into the Illuminati. I was getting worried. All right, my man Elam again, $20. Appreciate that. You know, the Illuminati would not want our black asses. Is that what they keep saying? But anyway, Elam, $20. You know right from wrong, right? Just like men do. It's no one else's fault but your own. That's why black people first started voting for the right. Damn, shame, because we started the Republican Party. Did we? We were Republicans first. I know that. My man Moses, $10. That selfish mentality came from the selfishness of European ways. Learning our history will fix all people, connecting them to our true spirituality. There is a difference between self-love and selfishness. Appreciate the super chat. Let me see if we got another question here. Trying to keep it balanced between the men and the women. Let's talk about this. Are these YouTube gurus / experts helping or hurting their followers? Ultimately, and I mean from the community-wide perspective, what are they doing? What do you think they're doing? Are they helping or hurting their followers? Ooh, I got giddy. I got some examples. Let's see. Inazi, it's like it looked like it's about to come out of your pores, so you might as well spit it out.
I think a lot of them are hurting, right? I think a lot of them are, I think you touched on it earlier, are exploiting people's pain for a dollar amount. And you see it because they don't really produce results. There's no more like amount of people that are getting married. There may or may not be more people getting in relationships, but we can't prove that that's a result of what they're doing. We're not having more conversations about solutions. We just sit there and we complain and we vent and we sell courses and ebooks and other products. It's not really going anywhere. It's not really productive in terms of what a lot of these people say is their goal, right? There just isn't the proof behind it.
I feel that. I think I'm gonna go on this. So they're absolutely hurting the people. And just like you said, Inaz, many of them do not produce results. So I don't have a Patreon, I don't have a Utreon or a Locals or anything like that. But one thing I noticed, and this is funny because I'm actually exposed a conversation that me and Lapeef had early on before I started the show. He said, man, I think you might want to be ready. People are going to be hitting you up. I had no idea what he meant. I was completely new to this YouTube space. 1 year ago, I had no idea people did this sort of thing on YouTube. I was watching gun videos and how to take apart a Zev OZ9, before when I came across this shit. I had no idea. And all of a sudden, maybe a month, 2 months into the Trigger Mike show, he let me know that my biggest followers were women. And then I did not check maybe till April that request box on Instagram. Like, you got to like scroll over to it. I had hundreds of just some of it was spam, but just questions asking me different things. So what makes your relationship with you and your wife so great? Just stuff like that. And I realized, is this how you really help your audience? And one of the things that I can say I'm called to do here, I do not see a lot of people that will take not being liked for your response over, a lot of people want to be liked in this space. They will acquiesce. And I stand firm in my convictions, even to those women I respond to on Instagram. Y'all have called me robotic, but I need to be that way. If I believe in something so sternly, I need to be that way for some of the people that are asking me these questions, because what they are trying to do, I understand, is if my answer is more likable to them, then they would probably follow it. No, I believe that if they understand what I'm saying, it will make them a better wife. It will make them a better companion. I'm telling them to serve first. Lead with your service and what you do well. I'm telling them stuff like that, and they're afraid, and I'm trying to break through that fear, right? Because if I tell you all the great things he's supposed to be doing for you, if I make 100 clips about men are stupid, man, these niggas need to get it together, they would never learn anything. And the good part about it, like I told you earlier, Shan, I am the example of the man that I want them to marry. So I'm gonna stay rigid and firm in my beliefs because I believe I could teach them how to be a better wife and actually become one day. But y'all got the floor.
Mike, do you think going by the name, what is it?
The
The
gender war general.
war general.
So if that's why you I'm gonna kick Marcus ass when I see you laughing the whole time. Oh, I'm gonna get you. Yo, both your kneecaps gone, bro.
Yeah, y'all might not know the joke, Trev and Sweetie, but we call Mike the gender war general because he always in this mode where he be wanting to fight. And he talk about he not gonna allow the people to dictate what he do. But the moment them simp words come out, he fall into the man.
Oh shit, we fighting, bro. You lying. You lying. I don't simp.
No, you don't simp. No, you don't simp. I'll take my whole little title. Whatever. Yo, simp.
Marcus says simp.
Yeah, you be mamping.
So I almost escaped it. You just had to bring this shit up. Okay.
So I think a lot of YouTube gurus are a reflection of their followers, right? And that's why whether they help them or hurt them is so nuanced. Because if you look at somebody like Kevin Samuels, you saw two different versions of his following. You saw the following that actually wanted relationship and marriage, and those were the results he got. And you also saw the following that utilized his talking points, utilized his language, utilized his words, and weaponized them. Same thing for Priscilla. You see a follow, and I think her following is far more like if you asked her following, they will tell you that she's doing everything she's a reflection of her own following. So what her followers want is what she's giving them. Y'all don't want to like men? I'm gonna get on that train and we gonna do this. And that's why it's kind of a hard question to answer because you have to ask the followers whether they're going off of what their followers want. So if your followers want toxicity and male bashing or female bashing, they're gonna rock with you. And they're gonna think you're God Mother Earth to every, and they're gonna think every word you say is on point. But if your followers want healthy relationships, you're gonna get that as well. That's why you see people like Trigger Mike, you get all those DMs and things like that. That's why I see the people that rock with Trev. That's what's the Crimson Cure, Pink Book Lessons, and all of them, and they all tend to expect different results, and they can come back and tell you, hey, look, because I listened to you, this is what I got out of it. But if you ask Priscilla, she can probably make the same argument that she's getting that same result from her followers. It just comes in a different light where she's saying her followers are hitting her up and saying, oh my God, you helped me out. You helped me separate myself from the patriarchy or whatever the hell thing that she's preaching. So if we wanted to look on the grand scheme of things, I think YouTube gurus have hurt us at large to some capacity, because if you look at us at large, we're not getting the results that we should be getting. Based off of all of the things that's been said, we've heard ad nauseum, improve yourself, do this, do that. But when it comes attached to the problematic things that we say on YouTube, a lot of people don't hear all the self-improvement. A lot of people don't hear all the good advice. They came for the negative. And that's what they get out of it. So at large, I don't think we're doing necessarily I don't think we have been a benefit to society. It's part of the reason why I've been like wanting to bow out of the conversation, because I feel like I've said all I can say. And I mean, take it how you want it. But I ask all the time. I ask Jay, I say, man, aren't you not tired? And I wish I got on the phone with Trigger Mike and I'm like, and told him, like, and I asked Ali, are you not tired yet? Are you not tired of saying the same thing over and over again ad nauseum and nobody's
I'm
hearing
about
you?
there, bro. I'm about there.
Because I think the ones that you see bow out are the ones that tried for the best. They had everybody's best interest at heart. And when you see everybody around you failing, And when you see everybody around you hurting, it hurts to even talk about it. And that's how I've been feeling. It's like, damn, no matter how much I say, no matter how much I push, I'm sitting here like, damn, I'm tired. So I ask y'all, are y'all not tired?
Can
I'm
I?
tired.
Can I?
Yeah, there's a.
Marcus, you go.
All right, go ahead. You got it.
No.
Oh,
you-
okay.
You-
All
you
right.
don't listen.
Yeah, so we have a responsibility, right? As all of us being YouTubers or social media influencers, right? I know when I first dropped, with my podcast that I did live, True to Fat was Smooth, and I would introduce that, and then I'd say, you know what? Yeah, Trev Smooth, aka Slave to the Mob, because I literally took the feedback from the mob, the crowd, the patrons, whatever you want to call them, and let them kind of mold me into whatever it is that they wanted. So I let them pretty much create a monster. And I didn't like the way it was going because I'm like, damn, because the crowd will let you just jump right into the toxicity. That's what's going to get you the numbers. That's what's going to get you the interactions, right? That's what's going to hit the algorithms the way you want them to. And it's hard not to sometimes, because that's what rewards you. That's actually going to be your monetary gain. So it's so easy for people to fall into the grifting, because that there's certain subset of people that you can have gravitate towards you that are looking for this niche, right? They're looking for something to hold on to, something to guide them, because most people just understand that YouTube itself is the number 2 search engine, only behind Google itself, both owned by Alphabet. YouTube is the second highest search engine. So if you're looking at that, you're like, okay, people come here when they have problems. I've learned to fix toilets on here. I've learned to change a sink. I've learned how to drop a transmission, do my turbo. I've learned how to take apart my weapon. I've learned how to do anything. I've learned how to perfect my roti recipe. Anything that you want to do, any problem you have, you come to YouTube and they solve it. People learn to kiss on YouTube. People learn how to manipulate men, manipulate women. They learn how to be savage, which is now glorified. They learn anything that they want from YouTube. So when somebody has a problem, this is now your psychologist. This is your teacher. It's YouTube University. Everybody learns whatever it is that they're lacking in, and it's judged on your following now. They're not going to, and YouTube only helps that, or any of the other social media platforms help that. You have to move up in the rankings. The people with the most numbers, the most subscribers, they're going to rank first. You have to study keywords just to get a crack at it. And you have to type in things that people are searching for. And there's a hot topic, something toxic, and you know how to put your cadence on to gravitate and grab these people in. It's hard not to, right? You have to be very disciplined. You have to be virtuous. You can't, it's almost impossible to avoid, because it sucks you in. It's addictive. It's like a drug. Just like you were mentioning earlier, it's a dopamine hit, right? Just the same, we're looking for these likes. We're looking for these comments. We're looking for these engagement, because that's how we grow. That's how we get rich. A lot of people see this as nothing but a hustle. I know some people who are doing it like that. It's a shame, because most people who are on here are not in it for anything righteous. They just want monetary gain. They want status. They want fame. And they get on YouTube, look at some other people who may have done it before, read a couple books here and there, push a narrative, regurgitate what somebody else has said, spin it off in a different way, and become millionaires behind it. So the people who are doing it the wrong way are rewarded. They're the ones that are successful. So unless we're able to get a hold of the people who are doing this, because you have to understand what's influencing the influencers. That's what the problem is. The people who are promoting all the toxicity, all the garbage, are the ones who are rewarded for the most part. All the censorship and everything is one thing, but when the algorithm hits, Those are the people who are rewarded. I know what type of videos that I can do to put up more controversial. Sometimes you have to for survival, but that's not what I want all my content to be about. Right? So I think there's a delicate balance, just because you have to have relevancy. You have to have people checking for you. But then you also need to add some type of value, right? If you're not offering enrichment, then you shouldn't be doing this. And I think that most people are in it for all the wrong reasons.
So I struggle with this because when you just said it's a hustle, that made me think about so the neighborhood I'm from is a high drug area, right? When people are inside that area and you hustling, you're not thinking about the long-term effects. You only thinking about what benefits you, and you don't see the detriment that it's gonna do long-term. Your foresight don't see it. If you zoom out of this might I think that might be the most accurate statement. This hustle can do this much damage, push these people this far apart, have these relationships so far gone that we won't even have kids together because we'll be so afraid of each other, fighting each other, and just it's such an adversarial role. You tear households up the same way drugs could do. That's crazy. But are the YouTube gurus and experts helping or hurting? So the thing I struggle with is, in moderation, I think anything can be great, right? It's when we overdose on the stuff. So you overdose on the drugs, or you overdose on the social media, and then you get in these feedback loops. I didn't seen them gold digger videos pop up, and you click on one, and the next thing you know, it's a big booty, and you're gonna want to click it, right? And it's just gonna keep feeding into your timeline and keep feeding into your timeline. And the next thing you know, you're gonna be like, it's women half naked walking around, and all they want to do is see me in a Rolls Royce so I can get some. That will become my reality. And now when I go out in the world and approach people, I'll be approaching them from the aspect of she a gold digger, she a gold digger. I don't have enough money, so I'm not even gonna try and talk to her. So even if it's not making me adversarial in a way where I'm combative with you, the mentality behind how I approach life now changes, because your perception dictates how you view reality, right? And if our reality is shaped by a perception via an algorithm that's negative, it's no wonder so many people can't find positivity within life. We in it's like a crossroad where you get to decide, right? One of the things about one of the books that we was referencing the other day, Think and Grow Rich, it talks about how the power of the mind allows you to shape and scope almost every facet of your life. And the person who believes he can, and the person who believes he can't are both equally right. Like one of the stories was about a guy who found Thomas Jefferson. He didn't have any money. He hopped on a train with no money, stood out there, damn near homeless. You know what I'm saying? With looking like a bum, but he gave him a job because he had made the decision, a conscious decision, that no matter what, this was gonna work, and I would get a partnership with him. He took a job with him. Didn't want a job. He took the job so he can get to the partnership. And finally, an opportunity presented itself from something nobody else wanted to do. And he turned that into one of the most successful partnerships that they've ever had, selling. I forget what the invention was, but it was something that they previously couldn't sell. He created a marketing plan and all these things. But it all started with that idea when he was homeless, trying to vagabond when they catch trains, they don't got no ticket. Catching a train to that point. I know sometimes these relationships seem hopeless, life may seem hopeless, but when you have an idea and positivity that no matter what I'm going to achieve, you can make all of that stuff come true. So they can help, but it also can give you an idea that none of it can come true and hurt you. So it's really up to how you interpret that perception to alter your reality.
Okay. So it's funny that this is a question, because literally 2 days ago, my husband and I were having a conversation, somewhat in relation to this. And one of the things that he said was, what is your mission? And I think what happens a lot of times in this situation is that our intentions start off well, but I think what goes wrong is when you begin to tie your purpose to profit, because then you end up losing what the goal was or what your mission was when you first started, whether it was to help with building relationships or, teaching somebody about something. but then you get caught up in what like Smooth was saying about, looking at the algorithm, seeing what ones are going to make you more money, things like that. So when you begin to tie your purpose to the profit, you end up losing the focus of what your mission was to begin with. And once you do that, I think that's when you begin to hurt the followers, because you're not even being your authentic self, because a lot of the stuff that you're saying, you don't even live by. You know what I'm saying? You don't even agree with, but because by being controversial and saying certain things that is going to get your likes up, it's going to give you more money. And then that becomes your new mission. The chasing the money becomes the mission, as opposed to standing in your purpose. And so I think if we get back to, if your goal was, or even defining what your mission is, sometimes, it is about the money. But if you are not about that and you stand firm in what it is that you want your messaging to be, then it shouldn't matter how many followers you have. Even if you have 10, you have 10 faithful followers. Those are 10 additional people that you're directing them on a path of building relationship. So I think once you define your mission and you stick to that mission, then I think you'll be okay.
Nice. Shan, did you get anything on this? Yep, you're tired. You're doing your space drift. I saw that.
I gotta be up so early in the morning. So are they helping or hurting? I think some are helping. I do think there are more hurters than there are helpers. I do. And it's okay to vent. Allow people a space to vent. But when the venting is just like you're dogging people out, you don't mean anything well by people, and it's over and over and over again, it's not solution based, you begin to hurt. So that's one. And I look at YouTube as YouTube has turned into like almost like the number one form of entertainment. I look at it as like, we have the Lapeef Network, we have different networks, kind of like television. It almost replaced television. I mean, who even watches TV these days? People probably, besides you mistaken, people probably log onto YouTube. They have their favorite shows on a certain time at night, just like they would television. And so it's kind of turned into like reality TV, but panel, and so people give them that Jerry Springer thing because they know that it'll bring more people in, and they talk about topics only to bring the people in, and those topics are actually hindering and making us, grow further and further apart. So that was a mouthful. I'm tired. So, but I do think that they are, I see more, and this is just me. And it could be just because I subscribe to certain people. I do see people who help, but I do see more people who hurt. Leave it like that. And you're right. They usually have the most followers.
They do. The toxicity sells, man. It's crazy. It's crazy.
How do we get to a point where we entertaining without? Is it even possible to be entertaining for real?
That money? What are you talking about?
Well, look at the draw. So even if you're opposed to it, you show up in opposition. So it's still views. Yeah. It's still you see what I'm saying? Sometimes I can't wait to jump in some of these chats and be like, "Oh, y'all fuckers delusional. Fuck all y'all." Like I just can't wait to type that shit.
Listen, you can be positive. People will come for you. You understand me? You will be like the enemy, public enemy number one.
Yeah, you can't wait to stand against.
Tear you apart, and you're like, what?
Like I literally went to that B. Taylor and Princella thing in the chat and was just like, "Here go this bullshit again." I couldn't wait to say it. I listened for like less than a minute. Here go this bullshit, right? Just to stand in opposition, saying I am opposed to you. So either way, she got a view. I think the algorithm actually gets my click, right? So that's why everybody shows up and everybody else's friends stuff, right? So that's going to trigger something, and people that follow me are going to get that in their feed. So yeah, the toxicity is attractive whether you're for or against.
And you increase engagement by the people that want to fight you. I seen how they was coming for you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if I
I'm
see, this is the best part about it, bro. I interpret these things different
Okay.
because if I ever wanted affirmation of my popularity on YouTube, that's where I get it from. Oh, y'all love to hate. You ever notice that anybody that can articulate themselves against a woman, they just don't want to let you speak? Shut them up before you say something smart. Shut them up. I'm just,
Nah, they be
Nobody
championing.
treats you like that, Mike. Don't do it.
No,
Nobody.
you
I
treat me
could
like
tell you
that,
if you ever want to be successful on YouTube, right? I don't suggest anybody does this, but I'm gonna just say how to do it anyway. If you want a video to go viral, right? Just say something extremely controversial, right? That you know some people are for, you know some people are against, right? Throw that up there, and then as soon as they start dropping comments, which they will right away, go ahead and interact with the first couple comments, and then just watch it fly. Just let it go. It's going to go on autopilot, and it's the more people engage, the more people interact, the more they fight. They're passionate about it. I've had no crap. I'm telling you on Instagram, I've had people fight over topics for 3 days. I had to turn my notifications off. People were fighting over and then it just became insults. After a while, it was just toxic. I'll let it rock because I'm like, oh well, they're working for me at this point. But they will literally fight for 3 days, going back and forth. So it's like, hey, you know what? And I'm talking about this is just one conversation between two people. Of course, there's a whole bunch of other ones, but I just started paying attention. I looked at that little piece of the thread. I'm like, wait a minute, are y'all still atting each other? Y'all are still atting for 3 days. So that's an easy formula to make damn near anything go viral. It works nearly every time. But it's just I can't find myself to do that anymore. I try to go with my gut. I go with what's right, something that I'm trying to offer value. So it's getting more and more difficult for me to drop videos like that. So, like I said, ultimately, I don't care about doing this the long way. I would much prefer people just listen. You know what you're supposed to be doing. You have to have clear goals in mind, and you need to be laser focused on it and go that way, right? Whatever it is the objective that you're trying to get people to learn, or you want to explain to them, whatever, just go ahead and go that route. And you're going to eventually find, well, YouTube or whatever platform you're using will eventually find people that are looking for specifically what it is that you're doing. Just make sure you have the research and you have a foundation and you know what you're talking about, and people will follow you.
Indeed.
So here's my thing on that, right? Black people are like the most creative people on this earth, right? And with this era of content creators, I don't understand how we haven't found a way to make positivity entertaining. Because that's really the thing. Right now, somebody along the way figured out that toxicity drove engagement because one person did it and people started replicating it, right? How do we figure out how to hack the algorithm and make positivity entertaining? Because right now positivity is just, it's cool, it's peaceful, it's very zen. It just doesn't drive the same engagement, right? So who's going to be the person to start the trend of making positivity engaging, exciting, entertaining?
Well, I think
Sesame Street did that.
Yeah. So what it really is that we have to acknowledge that we're hopeful people. We're very hopeful people, and what we're trying to do. I think this goes back to what I said earlier. You can't save everybody, and you can't save them from themselves. Remember what a lot of people are doing now. Just to put it, I don't know, use a biblical term. This is sin, and from sin must come the consequence. So we can't skip the step that people have done terrible things for generations. Now people are breaking up their families out of selfishness, right? Not creating families, leading people on, lying. They're doing all of these type of things. So we can't skip the part where they actually have to suffer from it, right? Society always corrects itself. When enough people have suffered and we can clearly state that they suffered for this reason from those choices they made, then positivity will become desirable. We are not as a group going to kumbaya and get things. The people, the thing that I always say is that the people that can will. I'm doing that, but I'm few, right? We already see the value in maintaining family together for our children, right? I already see it now. My wife is like, "Do you think our kids are going to run circles around everybody else's kids? Everybody getting divorced and shit." You see what I'm saying? So just by that factor alone. But go ahead.
So I hear what you're saying, and I think in the past it may have been true, but in an age of the internet, how long is that going to take? Because you're not really seeing the repercussions at the same rate you were before, right? The repercussions of me calling you out your name on the internet, I get to log off, go to bed, and I might wake up to a few nasty messages and we keep it moving.
Yeah.
That wasn't true in the past. And so how long will it take, and how bad will it have to get before we start to see the pendulum? You're way too happy about that question.
It's very hard. Stuff happens. So this is what I foresee happening, and I only smile because I'm actually seeing it happen now. That brick gate, that whole scandal, that whole thing, to me is a milestone in history. Because remember, I told you, men don't kill feminism; it kills itself. Women will lose all credibility by getting greedy, right? Starting to lie and starting to want to impose themselves and their will on society, and society will naturally reject it. So now you can even see women's essay claims starting to lose credibility and value. You see what I'm saying? Because it's not made in a certain way, or wait, he wasn't in that city, right? So that's what I'm saying. I think these are critical milestones to let you know the tide is turning, but it took generations to get here. It'll probably take generations to turn it around.
Can we actually accept the fact that humans are naturally mischievous and that we are attracted to the nonsense? Like they have mastered ways of making education fun. I did mention Sesame Street earlier. Like there's a whole bunch of things where they did it. And even on an adult level, right? There's been a million things. I used to watch Bill the Science Guy, I used to get into all of that stuff, right? But the problem is, name one thing on earth that is able to garner the attention that Krishan Rock and Blueface has been able to in the past week that's been educational. We don't care about it. That's the problem. No matter how good they make it, we just don't like it. Like let's just call learning Brussels sprouts, which is good for you, and we're gonna call drama cake. Now, I could freak it with a cake. You're going to like, if I put lemon in the cake, you're going to like it. If I put strawberries on the cake, you're going to like it. But guess what? You can't really freak Brussels sprouts. You just can't freak it. It's Brussels sprouts at the end of the day. Learning is Brussels sprouts to humans. So unless you raise your children on Brussels sprouts, it's going to get hard for them to be able to digest that, right? We have to start with the foundation. It starts with us as parents, us as community leaders, everything, right? It's us. We have to start with the foundation. It'll never be a situation where people just like learning. They won't, because nobody cares about it at all anymore. It's bad. But the only thing that we can do to kind of mitigate that is to start from young. It's up to us as parents. We have to, and mainly try to have a dual parent household. Try not to have children and forget it if you don't want to get married, right? Like if you don't want to do the whole service because you're afraid of that. I mean, get a spiritual marriage. That's fine, but just have it to where at least they have an example of two parents and how functionality looks, right? We need more of that rather than dysfunction. And that's where it really starts from the beginning. We have to instill these type of learning values from the beginning, right? You need to buy them things that are educational, right? Don't just buy them a bunch of dolls or a bunch of Jordans on their birthday. Get them, your baby can read, or, whatever. Just something that is going to advance them as far as their learning. And then you try to make it as fun the best that you can.
I was going to say, the thing is that with the internet, all of this is a choice. It's not like there aren't any options to watch stuff that is not toxic. It is literally a choice. Like for me, even for me, if I watch too much of this, like literally, I get sick. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you eat too much wrong food, even though is good, you still get sick. So being in these spaces a lot of time and just being involved in the negativity, hearing all the negativity, because a lot of people are here just for the purpose of starting controversy. Like, you can read some of the comments just be off the chain that don't even have anything to do with what the topic of conversation is, or it'll just something be thrown out there just so people can start arguing. So you're going to have those people just not just in the chat, but just in real life, because their lives are not the way that they want it to be. So it's like, I'm going to create this chaos because that's the way my life is. So those people, they're not going to change until they are ready to change, right? But you as an individual have the option to tune it out, to turn it off. I intentionally try to find other shows to balance out the negativity. So I am, getting a balance of stuff that's going to feed into me and help me grow. And then do this as well, where I'm just like, you got to take it or leave it. And that was like kind of what my husband was telling me. He's just like, a lot of times he's like, I don't watch any of this, but when I'm hearing in passing, like, I just don't understand what y'all goal is. What is y'all purpose? Like, it doesn't sound like y'all are building. It sounds like y'all are just arguing all the time, and he was like, so what else do you listen to? And I had to explain to him, I'm like, oh, well, listen to this show. He was like, okay, that's all I wanted to know, because I would have an issue if this is what you're feeding your mind all day, every day. And I think a lot of times when we're in these spaces, we get caught up with trying to watch what the other ones are saying, and it's still a negative space. But I do think most people do want to learn, but it depends on what they choose to learn. So you have the option of choosing things to learn that's going to help uplift you and make you a better person, versus the other things that already feed into your negative loop of thought. So
nice.
what I could say.
All right, let's get the super chats going real quick. I think we got two of them things. My man Big Ant, $10. Mike, I think 94.5% of people on YouTube like Cynthia G and Princella, aka Easy E, and let go, in the words of Bernie Mac voice, ain't worth two dead flies in some ass. That was my nickname in college, and you know why. Still low key 21, $20. Appreciate that. Everyone that spoke tonight made me stop and think. I hope more shows like this happen. Great conversation. I thought so too, man. Had no doubt it would be a great conversation. All right, let's get y'all final thoughts, man. This is going to be one of them bangers. We need to get this one on replay. So, we basically talked tonight about, leadership. That was a good one. What needs to happen in the I actually hate the word manosphere space. We need to create another word. Because women have infiltrated. Mistaken is infiltrated. Enad is infiltrated. This can't
Let's
be the
make another
manosphere.
space. Let's make another space.
Exactly.
How about the
Create
family
Another
sphere?
sector.
They are infiltrators if this is the manosphere. But no, I think
family
everybody's
sphere.
kind of feeling that vibe. I think Sweeney asked an excellent question. Aren't you tired? I'm actually tired. I'm actually tired. And I got to take my own advice, because one thing that I always say is that the people that will listen have listened. Right? There are people who are willfully defiant in these spaces. They don't want to learn. And you know how that works, even just from the school model. You have to be doing something cool over there to make people curious. It's the fact that we're still here arguing with them that they think they could possibly get the other hand. We got to go about our own business and create the cool circle. I mean, I remember that one episode with Kevin Samuels. It was probably one of the best ones, where he said, wherever there are men, and of course women too, congregating, talking about leadership, money, anything important. And I have had this happen to me on numerous occasions. and you just tune the world out and the world sees you, you will look up and there'll be a bunch of people and or women around you. They can just tell that these dudes, like I've seen that happen a bunch of times where you're just getting into it. So we got to start our own thing, and it's cool, and it's producing solutions. And then you see clips of us and our families together and all that type of stuff. We will become the cool kids, I have no doubt. But yeah, let me get y'all final thoughts on it. Mistaken, you go ahead. Yeah, you first.
I don't know. I think using YouTube, life experience, everything needs to be with the mindset of a learning opportunity for self-governance and growth. And I think those two things will help build our community and get us back in a space of building relationships, not just, marriage and stuff, which that is very important, but just being able to be in relationship with each other, period. That's all.
I think what competence inspires confidence, and the relationship is only as hard as you make it. That's it.
Alrighty, Nas, you got it.
I think more people need to apply the concept of chew the meat and spit the bones, right? There's that saying, even fools are right sometimes. We need to just start to learn to take the information that's relevant and drown out the rest of the background noise. I think it'll make even the entertaining and toxic conversations a little bit more productive.
Nice, my man Trev.
All right, so if you were a viewer, right, you might want to just look at your favorite YouTubers and see what their mission statement is, what their end game is, where are they leading you, right? And you should feel comfortable. A lot of times, most of us have open communication, right? You want to know what it is, what their point is, because they're leading you. No matter what, you're going to be influenced. If you're listening to a person who has a certain thought process and they're regurgitating the same thing every day, you're going to start to pick up those values. You're going to start to believe it. If you tell a lie enough, people will believe it. Everybody has witnessed that at some point in their lives, right? So you're going to have to try to develop some type of discernment, right? So the only way you could really understand that is to ask yourself these questions. Where is it going? Look at the progression. Look at when they started. See if they're actually building. See if they're trying to do things that are better. Or is it just they're just trying to run it up? Are they just trying to make money? And you'll be able to understand that. The only thing I want to touch on is the last subject we just had, as far as like the kids too. With the children, I didn't have any choices, right? It was only PBS. It was only PBS. That's all we could watch. I don't know if I think everybody here is familiar with PBS, right? All right, cool. That's all I was able to watch, right? I didn't even try to change the channel or none of that. I had to watch Sesame Street. We had to watch Romper Room, Reading Rainbow, like Nova came on. All of it. We had to watch stuff that would educate you. Other than that, it wasn't any option if you're going to watch TV. So I think sometimes we give our children too many choices. We're at the age right now where we feel comfortable giving our children cell phones, but they can get on any adult site, hit I am 21, I am 18, and have their way, right? And many of us don't monitor it. We trust that our children will do the right thing. We don't explain things to them, and then we wonder why they're behaving the way they are. We have to take accountability for our children. We're going to have to start doing a better job of policing what it is that they do. And it's not about like being overbearing, but there's a balance. We at least need to be involved. We need to have those talks. Most of us are scared to talk to our children about sensitive matters. But I'm here to tell you, if you don't, their peers will before you, and they won't be able to have the understanding of it that you would be able to give them. So I'll leave it there.
Dope. All right, y'all. This is a dope one, man. I'm glad. I might skip cheek or cheek this week. I feel like this was. I feel like I'm joking. I'm joking. This is a good one with the fan, man. Thanks everybody who came through, dropped the super chat. I was actually reading a lot of your comments, and I know a lot of you want to see more content like this. I'm pretty sure JR has a lot more shows in store. I'm writing or producing, whatever you call it, a few shows to try to break the monotony because a lot of these talks are on we're on from different panel to different network. Is even on my show, I'll admit it's getting circular because I'm trying to explain the same thing in a different way. And then the worst part is that some people are hell bent on just bringing the toxicity there. So you can expect a lot more from the Lapeef Network, and maybe we can be an exemplar for other networks to just start blazing the trail for something new. It is solution based, but I ain't gonna lie, I do like a little bit of toxicity as long as it's comical. So yeah, expect that a little bit of that from me, but I can't speak for anybody else. All right, y'all. So yeah, we out, and y'all stay safe. We'll catch y'all next time. All right, peace. One of y'all was breathing hardest.